As we start the year, I'm wondering what's the status of the United States in the world order? President Biden said he did a lot to reinstate diplomatic relationships during his term, but President-elect Trump seems to be more of an isolationist. And Anirban, where are we? What do you think about U.S. leadership in the world as we start the new year?
I mean, U.S. leadership in the world, I think, is in a problematic situation because the very international institutions that United States helped broker into creating this kind of world order after Second World War, it seems to be breaking those promises. It seems to be walking away from those, right? So I'll give you a couple of examples, one in trade, right? Since the Obama administration, it's not about Republicans or Democrats, since the Obama administration, there is no appellate person in the WTO, right? It's because, why? Because, America is losing these cases to China, so they now want to withdraw from WTO.
World Trade Organization.
World Trade Organization. We are seeing what's happening regarding the genocide in Israel, right? Like the ICC had put out arrest warrants and United States want to equivocate about that. We are sending billions of dollars of equipment. So you look at the world, when people say, United States is a force of good, people are laughing right now. We have 800 military bases around the world. We now create this boogeyman of China. We have these forever wars, $2.9 trillion on total of the US costs of war of Iraq and Syria, $8 trillion on total in US post 9/11 war spending. This needs to stop. US comes out as a warmongering nation that is willing to uphold genocide and just scramble the world order that it wonderfully helped create with England and other allies. And I feel despondent, to say the least.
Luke, are you as despondent?
Yes, it drives me crazy. I mean, what are we offering the world? To Anirban's point, I mean, it's not freedom, equality, democracy, opportunity. I mean, these are the things that I think help define America's greatness. And now we have, on both parties, sort of old, dated leaders that haven't really been able to inspire and motivate and lead the country in a direction that the rest of the world wants to follow. So instead, we're just offering the world guns and money, and that's not enough. And I want to shake Americans gently and point out to them, as Anirban referenced, that we created the world order. Mm-hmm. And yes, there's some greater good on it, but there's also a lot of American self-interest in terms of how that's all created. So the more we walk away from that, the more we're just undermining our ability to maintain our level of power and influence in the world. I get it costs a lot of money, and Americans don't like that, but let's take a step back at the big picture. It's worked for us and will continue to work unless we break it.
Amen to your self-interest issue. I mean, we need to do a better job of convincing the American people that like global security and national security are the same thing. And so I think about Ukraine and how it was once the world's third largest nuclear power until the Budapest Memorandum in 1994, when they gave up their nukes in exchange for a guarantee from the US, UK, and Russia for their security. And so if we fail them now, we create an incentive structure and a credibility problem that incentivizes rogue states to build up their own nuclear arsenals, and that's not good for global or US security.
Yeah, and to Chad's point, we're almost 3 years into this war. We have failed them. We have ultimately failed them. It has to be a collaborative effort across nations whenever there are problems, like a war, another country invading another country in 2024, 2025. This is ridiculous. So should we police the world by ourselves? Absolutely not. But we should have collaborative partnerships and be going towards the problems that way.
And one thing I'm adding, this is personal to me, one of the beautiful things that I enjoyed coming into the United States was free speech, my ability to criticize the government without anybody knocking at the door, without Modi's and his acolytes trying to heckle me, and as they have done in India. And that we are also seeing derogated now, right? Like, these lawsuits against companies, about moving books from libraries, policing what you can say and not say, and this fear, Des Moines Register being sued. That's kind of fearful to me. I think I held those principles of United States of free speech so dear to my heart. And one of the reasons I left India, and now I'm fearful that that stuff is happening here also.
You all are much more negative than I thought. Luke, what is the U.S. good at in the world?
Well, nothing comes
Is that
to
a
mind.
hard question?
Oh, come on.
I mentioned the American values. They go back to the Declaration of Independence, which I take to heart and mean a lot to me, not only as an educator, but as an American citizen. And we've never obviously lived up to those ideals fully, but they've been inspirational in terms of progress in America and other parts of the world. So I would say our political values are what we have to offer. And I want to be fair, when I criticize the American people, we've all been able to travel around the world and experience different countries and cultures. Most Americans haven't, and so I do think we need to create more educational opportunities for people to expand their worldview and understand the global era we live in.
And the answer, positive, the alternative is worse. So like I have a brilliant student who wrote a brilliant paper about what's going on in Sudan, and you have these competing interests between Egypt and Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Israel, Russia, and they've all used funded weapons to fund the civil war there. It's a lesson in what happens in a power vacuum when the U.S. gets out of its responsibility of, when we abdicate our duties to the detriment of the world. That's not to say that the U.S. is infallible, but it is rather to acknowledge that I think Madeleine Albright was correct when she said that the U.S. is the world's indispensable nation, willing to use force to secure peace. I think she was closer to being right than Trump was, even recognizing our flaws.
Yeah, but Madeleine Albright also said that, a price to pay for Iraqi, 50,000 or whatever number of babies were killed in Iraq because of our sanction. She stood by it saying, yeah, killing babies is fine, So Madeleine Albright is terrible on that, terrible.
I mean,
just need to put that on record.
Yeah, the bottom line we're all human, and the democratic experiment that we have been doing here for a couple hundred years has had a lot of good in the world and have taken different shapes, but when it's not in the shape of having freedom and freedom of speech, that is not in a good place for anybody in the globe, including us.
Militarily, we're pretty strong still, right?
Strongest in the world.
Yeah,
We spend
right.
more than the next 6 countries combined.
Right. So, and our cultural influence, I think, also.
Yeah, soft power, American soft power is great. Yeah, I grew up watching Hollywood films and I loved it, and and the kind of culture it showed. But, yeah, there's a lot of positive things, I suppose.